What's good, everybody? Welcome to The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lotzia. Happy Monday. JK, there's no such thing. Coming up, we'll help you build money-making lineups around the NBA and NHL, and heck, for Week 13's NFL main event on Monday Night Football, the Patriots and the Bills. But first, it's time to be passive-aggressive and look back at the Sunday that was around the NFL and see what these guys are overreacting to. Let's go. Good morning, the DraftKings contributors. Jeff Ulrich on the right, Pierce Dietrich on the left. A little Julian Edlow sandwich this morning. Yeah, baby.
Those are tasty.
They are. They're very beefy and meaty. Kyler Murray and D-Hop returned to the Cardinals, and they remain legit Super Bowl contenders here, guys, after knocking off the Bears. So Arizona scored twice in the first quarter. Arizona is a game up now for the top seed in the NFC with a win total in the DraftKings Sportsbook here, guys, sitting at 13.5. So a two-part question. How much do you like the Cardinals to go over that mark at plus 115 odds? And do you think they'll need to get the 14 wins in order to hold off the Bucs and Packers for that first-round bye, Jeff?
I think the Cardinals are a good team. Obviously, we know that they've won games without Kyler Murray. I don't want to take this bet, though. We're essentially asking them to go 4-1 over their last 5 games, and they've got the Rams, Cowboys, Colts, and then you've got the last game where, they may not need to win, and then they could rest their players against Seattle, who probably isn't smart enough to rest Russell Wilson. Maybe they don't care about resting him because he won't be back. Anyways, it just really works down to his scheduling thing with this line. I just don't think you're getting enough juice to take on all these tough teams, plus the fact that you may not even be getting their starters playing in the final game. No, I don't like this one. I do like the Cardinals long term. They're probably still not getting enough respect in the futures. This is a very solid team that, like I said, has been winning without their best players all year.
Hey, Pierce, they're not getting enough juice. You agree with Jeff?
I'm not on board based on what we saw yesterday. That's great. They won. They beat the Bears. But if you look at 3 of those drives, one drive was 28 yards, one was 15 yards, one was 12 yards. They blew out the Bears because Andy Dalton was throwing these bad interceptions. They did have a 74-yard drive. They looked good in the no huddle. But again, that was aided by a big James Conner run and a big reception by James Conner. They looked okay. I think more of the talk should be about this defense. Robert Alford just does not get enough credit. He's been one of the highest PFF-graded cornerbacks in football. He missed all of last season because of a major injury, missed all of the season before that because of a major injury. And that's kind of the theme of this Cardinals defense, is that they've got a lot of guys that we don't expect to play well that are actually playing a little bit better, but they're not playing good enough to go on that kind of a run to be worth this bet.
I mean, they didn't need to really put together any of those sustained drives against the Bears, and the Bears were just like crapping all over themselves, as you mentioned, all the interceptions there. Jules, how do you feel here? You think they need to get the 14 wins? They had a good bet, plus 115. You think they need to get the 14 wins to hold off the Packers and Bucs?
They might need to, but I'm kind of with Jeff here just in terms of taking this now, you're betting on too much unknown. What we do know is that they're going to play 3 teams that are going to be motivated and need to win, that being the Rams, the Colts, and the Cowboys. Those teams are all going to be obviously trying to win those games for their own playoff hopes. The Lions are in there. I'll give them that W for sure. But it comes down to that Seahawks team. Arizona's probably going to win 13 or 14 games, but I'm not comfortable betting on it because, yes, that last game, if the Bucs or Packers do have a slip-up and it doesn't come down to it, to them needing to win, Arizona could absolutely rest everybody. And we saw yesterday, for some reason, Pete Carroll is absolutely jacked up to improve to 4-8. So maybe Seattle does try and win that game against all Arizona's second or third stringers. I just feel like I don't know enough. I can't predict enough of the future to want to invest in this.
Okay, let's see what you guys can predict, if anything, in the AFC North, because it's once again an absolute circus. Steelers shocked the Ravens after John Harbaugh goes for 2 as the Ravens remain one of the most analytically savvy franchises in sports. The Bengals lose, and then the Browns were on bye. So it was a big opportunity for the Ravens there to take like a 2-game lead in the division. They do not. So the Steelers right back in this thing. Baltimore still has the lead in the division, still the favorite at minus 150, but the Steelers now at plus 1,400 to win the division. Tell me why you like that value for Pittsburgh, Pierce, or maybe you don't.
I don't like Pittsburgh, and I don't like the bet on the Ravens either. I've been saying all season this team is overrated. They're not a good team, and once again, I've been proven correctly. Yes, Lamar Jackson was expecting him to play better yesterday, but there's a way you beat Lamar Jackson. It's pretty simple. You do what the Dolphins did on Thursday night. You bring a lot of pressure on him. You sack him. You blitz him. That's what Pittsburgh did yesterday. They sacked him 7 times. J.J. Watt got to Lamar 4 times. That's all you got to do. That's really not that hard. I mean, it's a pretty easy game plan. Look at this offensive line for the Ravens. 29th in adjusted sack rate. Not a good team. 28th in adjusted rushing yards. It's not a good team. Devontae Freeman is their lead back. This is not a good team. This is not last year's Dobbins, Edwards, Ingram offense. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they were fine yesterday. Was it disappointing? Was it shocking? Yeah, they made too many mistakes. That's what teams do. That's what young teams do. They battled back, got into that game. They had Mixon had a fumble return for a touchdown. Jamar Chase had a touchdown that he bobbled, and it turned into an interception. Joe Burrow threw a red zone interception. They just made too many mistakes. I still believe in the Bengals and not in the Ravens.
Yeah, Jules, Ravens 1-2 in divisional games too, and now all of a sudden the Steelers once again haunting the rest of the division.
Yeah, I guess the odds on the Steelers, when you look at the standings and how jumbled up they are, it's anyone's division. So I guess I'm not betting the division. If you made me bet the division, sure, give me the longest odds if you're giving me like a free bet on it, and that's the Steelers. So I don't know. This division's all summed up by that Ravens finish, the Bengals having 2 turnovers from Chase and Mixon that arguably could have completely flipped that game. It's just not something I'm willing to bet on. If you want one bet from me in the AFC North right now, I will bet Cleveland money line next week with Baltimore coming into Cleveland. Cleveland's coming off a bye. Cleveland just lost a grinder in Baltimore. It's a bounce back spot, and the Ravens lose another cornerback. Like, if you want one thing from me in the AFC North, the Browns are beating the Ravens on Sunday, and that's all I'm willing to commit to.
All right, Jeff. Can the Ravens get past their offensive issues enough to bet them? Their schedule's daunting. Look at this. They finished up with Cleveland, Green Bay, Cincinnati, the Rams, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even blame Julian for having commitment issues. It's the AFC North here. I mean, what are we talking about? But I am with Pierce. I mean, I think that the team that's looked the best all year, and I'm not saying they're an elite team, but it's the Bengals. I mean, their defense has been spotty in starts, but Burrow got them back into that game. Joe Burrow just needs to stop turning the ball over like in the first 5 minutes of every game, and the Bengals probably just win out here. But if you look at the schedules for the AFC North, we're almost in like a round robin format. These teams are all playing themselves multiple times or playing each other multiple times before the end of the year. So you're really in a situation where you shouldn't be taking the favorite because there's no way that the Ravens are like big favorites versus any of these teams right now. And I like the spot with the Bengals because they have a game over the Browns and the Steelers. And they also match up against all these teams. Like, they play the Ravens again. So their destiny is still in their own hands. I think the Bengals at plus 225 is the best odds. Now, about the Steelers, I think if you're going to take that Bengals bet, maybe sprinkle a little on the Steelers at plus 1,400 as well, because it's a little bit of a hedge. And if Ben somehow runs the table, you got the big odds. Again, the Steelers also have game in hands against the division too. So that's how I'd be playing this. The Bengals are really the team you should be hammering, though.
Yeah. Some say maybe the Bengals are a little too inexperienced for this fight, at least right now. But they're at least already 3-0 against the Ravens and the Steelers this season. We'll stay in the AFC. You got winners of 5 straight here, guys. Who is that? The Dolphins, creeping back towards 500. And hey, it's likely to be 6 in a row when they play the Jets this week. So Miami plus 800 to make the playoffs. And in a crowded AFC playoff race, the Dolphins have as good a chance as anyone to sneak into that 7th spot. Is that an overreaction, Jules?
Probably not. I'm just scrolling through the standings now. Like, I want to try and find teams that are better than them, and there are teams that are better than them, but the Dolphins are playing better right now. So there might be enough bad teams in the AFC for them to pull this off. It's probably not going to happen. The no is minus 1,600. The yes is plus 800. But there are, Indy has crawled its way back after a 3-0 start, but we're always a Carson Wentz injury away or a Jonathan Taylor injury away from them no longer being nearly as relevant. And we have that AFC North, as we just talked about, kind of cannibalizing each other. At plus 800, you can interest me there. They're probably not going to get there, but I think the price for how good they're playing right now is well worth it. They're as good as these other middling teams that have playoff hopes. The question is, did they just shoot themselves in the foot too many times to begin the season?
Yeah, Jeff, how much interest here would you have in betting the Dolphins to make the playoffs? They're on a bye this week, but they do host the Jets next week.
It's an interesting spot for sure. I mean, I don't like, there is a situation where they may not even have to win out. Like, they may just have to go 3-1, and maybe they sneak in via a tiebreaker or something. Look, they play the Jets, then they're on the road at the Saints, Titans, and then they finish up with the Patriots. I think it comes down to, are the Patriots resting players that week? If they have to go up against a full bore Patriots team, like there's not enough there. And even that, like, they have 2 road games in a row against one good team in the Titans and one like kind of failing team in the Saints, but still going into New Orleans and just grabbing a win, that's not an automatic. I don't think there's quite enough here. You're also asking them to bypass the Bengals, the Chargers, the Colts are at 7-6. I just don't think it's going to happen. Like Jewel said, the no here is at a very big price for a reason. I don't think you're getting enough to bet. I'd want to see probably plus 1,200. So I'm going to say no, stay away from this one, but it's certainly like an outcome that could happen. Not for me.
Okay, is it for you, Pierce?
Yeah, I'll jump on this. You need to monitor the Jalen Waddle injury, so download the DK Live app to find out what's going on there. But if he's going to play, they've got enough weapons. With Gaskin, Gesicki, Devontae Parker is back. Tua's playing well. The biggest weakness on this team is the offensive line. But if you look at Tua's stats, he has adjusted. His pocket time is one of the shortest in the league, which you say, well, that's bad. He's being rushed. Secondly, in terms of getting hit and quarterback hurries, it's also pretty low. So he's adjusted to the line not playing well. They've been pretty productive. They've held opponents to 17 points or fewer over the last 5 games. Now, if you look at those opponents, it's been pretty soft. But as Jeff mentioned, the rest of the schedule is still pretty soft. They've got a bye week. They've got the Jets. They've got the Saints. They've got an overrated Titans team. And it will all come down to that Patriots game, the final game of the season. They probably need to run the table. But you look at the schedule, you look at what they've been doing, they're coming off the bye. I think they can get it done, especially if the Patriots don't necessarily need that win at Miami in the final week.
I'm not quite sure what Minnesota and what the Vikings can get done right now because everyone has been put on notice in that organization. The Vikings lose to the Lions with Dalvin Cook injured. Then they lose Adam more than a Thielen to an ankle injury. It feels like their season is absolute toast. Odds makers have them at minus 360 right now to not make the playoffs. What's your gut telling you here, Jeff? The biggest Kirk Cousins hater I know.
My gut tells me that the Vikings will probably go into the final week of the season needing a win against the Bears to get in and lose the game. That's probably that seems like the most Kirk Cousins way to end this year.
And that will probably save like Matt Nagy's job too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Save that. Yeah, that would just work out perfectly. I'll be dead honest. I actually don't hate taking the Vikings on right now to make the playoffs. Like, who are we? Like, there's no dominant team in the NFC. Are we really that high on Washington all of a sudden? I like Washington, but the 49ers have proven time and time again, this is a team that will also let you down in the most easy of spots, much like last week. So I just don't think that there's any dominant team in the race for like the last playoff spot because it's pretty clear. We're just talking about one wild card spot. I don't think the Rams are going to implode to the point where they bring teams back in the conversation. But Washington, again, 49ers, these are also teams that can't be trusted. I don't hate taking on the Vikings here. I think they're at big enough odds. And I don't, the injuries, whatever, they still have Justin Jefferson. You can replace running backs. I'm not too worried about that. I'm just looking at the standings and the teams in front of them. And I still think the Vikings are at least as good or better than some of those teams they're going up against. So I think with the big odds you're getting, they're actually an interesting play to make the playoffs right now.
What's crazy is the NFC East could send like up to 3 teams to the postseason right now. And it's a division that sent 2 teams to the playoffs just twice in the last 11 years. Pierce, how do you feel about betting the Vikings here?
Didn't Washington make the playoffs last season? So, this is 2021. You're not going to be able to rule anyone out until the final week. And even then, I don't even know how that's going to work. But so, yeah, the Vikings have a chance. Did they lose to the Lions? Yeah. Should they have lost the Lions the first time? Yes, they should have. But if you want to play woulda, coulda, shoulda, and you go through the Lions schedule, the Lions are just about a 500 team. So that's not the worst possible loss in the world. The Lions are a decent team. They just can never get it done. And they almost choked again yesterday. The issue I have with the Vikings is just too many injuries. Kirk Cousins was inconsistent when he had Cook, when he had Thielen, and he had a really good offensive line. But now he's lost Thielen, he's lost Cook, and there's injuries all throughout that defense. They're an above-average defense probably to start the season, but they've lost their entire defensive line. They're dealing with linebacker issues every other week. They're dealing with DB issues every other week. You combine all those defensive injuries with Thielen and Cook, the inconsistency of Kirk Cousins, and it looks like they shouldn't make it, but like Jeff said, it's going to come down to last week. Flip a coin. Maybe they beat the Bears, maybe they don't.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jules, there is that massive logjam in the NFC at 5-7, but Minnesota has the top spot among that group.
I mean, Pierce just gave out one of the hottest takes in the history of the sweat, and we just stumble right over it. We're entering week 14, and the Lions have won one game, and Pierce says they're about a 500 team. Wrong by a mile.
They have not been. Hey, the Lions have not been eliminated from playoff contention here, dude.
What do they have? Like 2 overtime losses, the Justin Tucker game.
Forget betting the Vikings for playoffs. The Lions are just about 500. Let's bet the Lions to make the playoffs.
Yes, Pierce.
I need to see Pierce's ticket on his Lions to make the playoffs bet because they're just about 500 entering week 14. It's time to go get them. All right, Vikings. Sure, like mathematically, maybe they're a good bet. Like it's a good time to buy low. They lose to the Vikings. It was baked in, they lose to the Lions. It's baked in that they should have won that game. So that's why their playoff odds were like just about a pick 'em entering the week. So now you're getting good value if this team can bounce back. I actually don't hate them on Thursday night hosting the Steelers, who are kind of at a sell high on the Steelers, buy low on the Vikings after what we saw on Sunday on the short week on Thursday night. So I don't hate their odds to bounce back, but in the end, I'm with Jeff on just like Kirk Cousins is not my guy. We've seen him take knees when he meant to spike the ball and run the clock out to end halves. We've seen him line up under the wrong guy. Like, the dude's brain just isn't there. I'm not a Kirk Cousins guy, so I'm not in on this.
Dude, every Google Lions making playoffs, the headline for almost every article is like, here are the 45 things that need to happen for the Lions to make the playoffs. So, Detroit is on the board. And, I mean, let's be real. If they played the Jaguars next week, the Lions would win by 2 touchdowns. They are not the first team to be eliminated from the playoffs, as we have mentioned. That honor goes to the 2-10 Texans. No odds for the top pick in the draft here, guys, but it could play a part in obviously which player goes number one. With 5 games left for each team, will we see the Texans or the Lions with the top pick come April, Pierce?
Okay, I'm punting the question. I want to go through this Detroit schedule. They almost beat San Francisco. They should have beat Baltimore.
Yep.
They should have beat Minnesota the first time. They should have beat Pittsburgh. They barely lost by 3 to Cleveland. They barely lost to Chicago by 2.
Yeah.
That's 6 wins. Add 6 wins to their schedule and take away the losses. That's a 500 team.
Yeah, dude. Pierce, no argument from me. It's Julian.
Guy.
It's Julian who disagrees
There's
with you.
no chance.
The only problem with all those games that you just gave out that they won is that they actually lost.
They covered probably.
They're a great cover team. Now they're like 7-4 or something. I mean,
all right, Pierce.
Dan Campbell.
Pierce, who gets the top spot in the draft? Who do you think? Is it going to be the Texans or the Lions? The Lions currently hold the number 1 spot.
Well, you can't pick the Lions.
Yeah, I can't pick the
No,
Lions.
because they're a 500 football team.
That's right.
Yeah, they're going to the Super Bowl. It's got to be Texans.
All right, Jeff.
All right, I'm going to attempt some actual analysis on this question. If you look at the schedules, the Lions do have, they have like 3 winnable games. They have the Broncos, the Falcons, and the Seahawks on the schedule. Again, we've seen them play good teams close. The Texans had to replace Tyrod Taylor with Davis Mills last week. They can't score. They're terrible. The Texans are going to get the number 1 overall draft pick. Absolutely.
All right, Jules.
If it's Texans with Davis Mills, I don't hate it. Like in theory, it should be the Lions. They should.
Did you see Davis Mills play last week?
Yeah, no, he stinks. I've seen him play a couple times.
Okay,
I love Davis Mills because you can bet against him. If the Lions were smart, they would hold down this number 1 pick. But I know that they want to win for some odd reason. So I think this is going to be very close. I think that the Texans, given their schedule, probably have a better chance. Like, the Lions could win 1 more game. What happens if both of them win 2 games?
It's true. It feels like Detroit's direct competition for the number 1 overall pick is going to come down to that loser of the Week 15 clash between the Jaguars and the Texans in America's town, in America's city,
there you go.
Jacksonville. Good stuff, guys. That was really fun. But please do not go anywhere. We still need Pierce to tell us why he's captaining Gunnar Olszewski tonight. And then Julian probably will not agree, but let's get some of his thoughts on the game with Steve Buchanan and our friend Ben Ross on the Unreasonable Odds podcast last week.
Steve and I obviously like the Patriots on Monday night. I think the White injury is going to play a pretty big factor. It will be a real road test to see what Mac Jones can do in a real road atmosphere, in a stadium where adult toys get potentially thrown at you on the field. It's going to be a lot different than going to Atlanta and playing in front of a 25% capacity in a primetime game. So it will be tough, but I like where the Patriots are at. Duggar COVID-related potential news isn't great. He's been awesome on that defense. I'm hoping that he is out there. But yeah, I'm on the Pats -3. I do think they win the game. They've been the more consistent team, and they're really rallying around this run, whereas the Bills bounce back as they should in New Orleans on Thanksgiving, but they've been super inconsistent. We've already talked about the game plenty, but Ben, you're here. I know you're leaning towards or betting the Bills in this one. Make the case for us before we kick Steve out and go to college football.
Yeah, tough game. I have not bet it yet. I think I'm probably going to lean to the Bills side, and I think it's more situational. Patriots look great. There's no doubt. They have played teams where almost every team is missing a focal point of the offense, and I think they've gotten that, and they've taken advantage, obviously. But what I want to see, and Mac Jones has answered every call, I don't think that the Patriots will be able to run down their throat. So it's going to fall to this passing game a little bit. And obviously in that atmosphere with Josh Allen on the other side, I think that the Patriots to win the game are going to have to be pretty dynamic on offense. If they can do that, they check another box and they probably assert themselves as the team to beat in some ways in the AFC. But I do think that the Bills are going to show up and do some things that Tennessee and Cleveland and Atlanta and those type of teams just were unable to do to the Patriots.
If this moves to 3.5, would you still be interested in the Bills, or would you side in with the Pats at that point?
I wouldn't take it at 3.5. No, I think that this is one. This is a tough game, and when you're talking about like hooks like that, that's a serious half point. So I respect New England enough to probably leave it off my card. I don't think I would bet New England there, but it would be a pass for me.
Fair. Yep.
All right.
Be sure to watch, listen, and download Unreasonable Odds every week to get all of their best bets. And speaking of best bets, let's bring in DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich. He returns, and he is joined now by RotoWire's Paul Bruno. They're here to talk some hockey. It's NHL opening face-off here, dude. So best DFS and sportsbook plays on tonight's 6-game NHL slate. Let's start with DFS. Paul, hook me up with a center you like tonight to build your lineups around.
Emerson, I'm tempted to go to the top of the board for McKinnon tonight, $9,200. I like the matchup against Philadelphia. They just announced that they've sacked their coach. And McKinnon, for his part, has got 16 points in 11 games, so he's rolling and back and healthy right now. The Flyers, meanwhile, have given up 4.5 goals per game over their 7-game losing streak. This could get ugly, in fact, tonight. I think McKinnon and the rest of the Avs offensive arsenal would be firing like crazy. If you like cheaper options at center, Rupe Hintz is the hottest shooter at the position right now with 10 goals and 3 helpers in his last 10 games played, and it'll cost you $6,500 in his favorable home matchup against the visiting Coyotes. And now that a coaching change has been made in Vancouver, I look for them to be motivated to make a good first impression for Bruce Boudreau tonight. If you believe in that, then I like the 2 centers that they offer in the scoring lines, Bo Horvat at 5,100 and JT Miller at 5,400. It may be an interesting option against a visiting LA club that's lost 7 games out of their last 9.
I mean, Jeff, you feel like making it rain there with the $9,200 Mr. McKinnon?
Yeah, it almost feels like a night where you might be a little bit contrarian to pay up because there's so many good value options. I don't hate it, but I do think that like center is an option where you can certainly pay down. And I don't even mind taking a shot with Jack Hughes here. I actually kind of like the spot. I mean, it's Ottawa, right? So, I mean, what's not to like? They still last in goals allowed, last in a bunch of defensive metrics. Jack Hughes hasn't been like great since he's returned, but that's going to keep ownership down as well. Still going to get plenty of time out there on the power play and stuff for the Devils. So I think just matchup wise, it's a good shot to take a shot with Hughes and like the top 6 for the New Jersey Devils. And then Trevor Zegras is another player you can pay down for. I mean, 14 points in 10 games. Like, where did this guy come from? Where did the whole Anaheim Ducks team come from this year? It's insane, but Zegras really good value at 5,200. just keep playing him until he's priced above 6K. So lots of value. I mean, Paul mentioned Hintz too. Lots of value at the center position tonight.
I feel like as we go to the wings and things department, like Alex Ovechkin here just keeps aiming higher and higher in his quest just to score goals. Would you feel like paying up for him tonight, Jeff?
No, I think, again, with what we were getting on offer at wing, I don't think you need to necessarily need to go to 9,600. I think Jake Guentzel against Seattle is just too good to pass up there at 7,500. Obviously coming off a hat trick, so maybe it's feels like a little bit like chasing points, but it's a player who's averaging 5 shots on goal over his last 10 games too. When Sidney Crosby has been healthy and playing well, and Guentzel's playing alongside, I mean, those two are just a really good pair, especially against weaker teams. We saw what they did against Vancouver. Seattle's really not much better in terms of defense, especially in goal. So I like paying up for Guentzel there. Jason Robertson, another player, playing really well on that line with Hintz you could consider against the Coyotes.
Okay, what are you deciding to do here at wing, Paul?
Well, you got to do the obligatory Ovi reference. He's on fire. We all know that. And he's facing the visiting Ducks club. They're scoring a lot, but they're also giving up a ton. And that's the interesting part of it. 17 goals against in their last 4 games. So it's a spicy possibility for Ovi to build up another big night on his resume. Among the mere mortals on the wing, though, I like Colorado's Rantanen and Landeskog against the reeling Flyers at $8,800 and $7,400 respectively. With the coaching change and the disarray that must be around that team today, I think this is a really good possibility. And then in the lower end of the board, Brady Tkachuk has looked like a runaway train with 10 points in his last 10 games played, and I don't think the Devils will be able to contain him tonight. So that's a solid play for $5,700 in my view. And at the lower end of the board, I like the Caps' TJ Oshie for only $4,200 as he's back in the Caps' top 6 mix. And you know he's anxious to be an impact player with his high active and high energy approach.
Paul, who is your go-to guy back on the blue line?
Well, I want to say Cale Makar, but you got to check his status because he was scratched on the weekend. So before you commit to him and his lofty price tag, take a look at what RotoWire's lineup looks like for you before you commit to that. And if he can't go, then I like Devin Taves in his place. He comes in at $6,000 with a career best 11 points in his last 10 games played, and he's going to play all the high leverage minutes and more if Makar can't go. But even if it doesn't, he's still a good play at that price point. And then if you want a safer play, look at the other games. I'll be considering Quinn Hughes at $5,600. He got 20 points in 24 games when the Canucks were in a full train wreck mode. And I think his group will be motivated tonight, so that should reflect positively on him.
All right, Jeff, what about you, man? Give me a defenseman.
Yeah, I think if you're going to pay up for defense, Dougie Hamilton is absolutely fine, especially with Maker, obviously. Questionable. If you don't want, you don't necessarily have to, but I think Hamilton is clearly, like you've got Letang and Karlsson below him. I think with the matchup against Ottawa, Dougie Hamilton is in a pretty clear spot to be the #1 play there. So I really don't mind paying up for him. But there's a ton of places you can pay down. I agree with Paul. Like Quinn Hughes is a very good play there at $5,600. I do expect, like the Vancouver team as a whole, they're not very good, but their offense is definitely better than what they've shown this year. And I think Hughes should benefit from the coaching change just as much as anyone there. Still going to get tons of power play time. LA is fine, but they're also coming off a game, last night. So I think Quinn Hughes is a very good target there. Going down, you could even think about Vince Dunn. But a little bit of a tougher matchup there. So lots of places you can go on D. If you're going to pay up, though, just go all the way up to Hamilton.
All right, Ulrich, which way are you leaning for your goalie matchup tonight?
Yeah, I mean, again, the safer play is to go with the team playing the Arizona Coyotes. Jake Ottinger, again, Dallas potentially going to get the start. He's just played out of his mind so far. He's got a .905 save percentage over, since he's basically joined the Stars again this year. So I think that's fine to pay up for. But for GPPs, you want to get a little bit more fancy. I think the Canucks goalie, Thatcher Demko, assuming he gets a start, he's played really well. I mean, I know he's coming off a loss, but he's definitely picked up his play a bit. And if you like this narrative that Paul and I are throwing out with the coaching change, I think Demko's in a sneaky good spot to get a win as well. So GPPs under 8K there with Thatcher Demko. Like I said, that's where I would go for big fields.
Okay, Paul, what about you, man? Take us to the crease.
I'm going to give you a 3. The Caps are rolling along and are always tough at home, so you can have to consider either of their goalies for $8,200 against the visitors from Anaheim. If you go with a high win probability elsewhere, you got to consider the Avs in Philadelphia, and that means that you look at whoever's starting for them in goal. It looks like it's going to be their #2 guy, Jonas Johansson, for $8,000. But as always, I encourage our viewers to go to the RotoWire for updates on whether or not Darcy Kemper will get the medical clearance to play instead. And finally, the Penguins are playing a very stingy defensive style right now, and Tristan Jarry has been the hottest goalie on the planet with a 160 goals against average in his last 10 starts. I wish AJ would have heard me say that, guys. Tonight, he's in line to face Seattle on the road and costs $7,900.
I'm sure AJ is watching now and punching air currently. Finally, let's move to the sportsbook real quick here, guys. What's your favorite money line bet tonight, Paul?
There are a few lopsided money lines that I'm going to stay away from. I just don't see much value on either side, and I don't see a big case for an upset in those circumstances. So I'll try the other three games. I spoke of a new motivation for Vancouver and the recent struggles of the visiting Kings, so I will be on the minus 145 bet for a Canucks win tonight. I also see the Avs are a significant road favorite at minus 160, but I'm very comfortable with that bet too. And then finally, I believe the Penguins right now are near the top of their defensive game, and their offense is starting to get rolling again with Sid the Kid back in tow. And I like their firepower over the Kraken as minus 130 road faves tonight.
Jeff, you like anyone plus money?
Plus money. I actually don't hate the Senators on the road. They've actually played quite well. You know, they've been winning shootouts, but like we mentioned, Brady TKACHUK playing well. They can certainly, I mean, the Devils have been just as bad defensively as the Senators of late. So I think the Senators are very live at plus 140. We mentioned the Canucks. I just can't bet them at minus 130. I think that if this game was closer to a pick 'em, then I would be on the Canucks. But I actually like the Penguins. That's probably my favorite bet of the night for the money line. Minus 130. Paul mentioned Tristan Jarry playing really, really well. I think this Penguins team has enough going right now to get up a win here against the Kraken on the road. That's going to be my top play there for the money lines.
Guys, love you, mean it. Paul, you are free to continue your online shopping and cyberbullying AJ. But Jeff, do not go anywhere, please. We need you back to give us your plays for tonight's huge, ginormous, thick AFC East matchup between the Patriots and Bills. And in case you missed it yesterday morning, here's what our friend Ross Tucker told me on the Sweat about who he likes in tonight's game. All right, man, you know what we love to do before you take off? We like to turn our attention to Monday Night Football. And this week, it may just be the game of the week. You got the Pats aiming to push their win streak to 7 games. But this could be Mac Jones' toughest test in his young rookie year. It's on the road in Buffalo. First place on the line. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I think it's going to be an awesome game, man. I think it's the game of the week. It's fortunate it's on Monday night. Can't wait for everybody to be watching it. Honestly, I think it's a field goal game either way. Both teams understand the importance of this contest. But if it's a field goal game either way, I'll take the team getting the points, right? I mean, if it's a coin flip, whatever kind of game, give me the points. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Patriots won the game. So I like the consistency that New England has shown for a couple months now, as opposed to the roller coaster up and down that we've seen from the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I know the Bills have been on extended rest, but hey, Patriots 4-1 ATS in their last 5 road games. All right, week 13 around the NFL will wrap up tonight. It's the main event. It's arguably the biggest and best game here on the docket. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, Julian Edlow here to share with you their favorite DFS and sportsbook plays for tonight's New England Buffalo game. Let's start with your favorite captain play in DFS, Jules.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the total in this game. It's not pretty and it's going down, and it makes a lot of, you got to dig deep for a captain. I don't hate going, like, I kind of want to go to the Patriots ground game after what we saw from Jonathan Taylor against this Bills, elite run defense that obviously has gone downhill. The problem is you have that timeshare now between Harris and Stevenson, and Bolden, who's questionable, looks like he's trending towards playing and gets most of that receiving work. I'll go with Damian Harris, I guess, but this is not a game where I'm like, oh, this is the guy you got to captain. This is a guy you're going to find a lot of offense from. We got wind, so the Buffalo deep passing game is like, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs become more questionable. I'll go with the Patriots ground game. I'll captain Damian Harris, but it's not a pretty game. If you want to punt at captain, that is fine by me.
All right, Jeff, I'm seeing pictures and videos coming in all over the place from Buffalo. It looks nasty there. It's going to get worse tonight. Is that going to impact who you decide to captain?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's go with Mitch Trubisky, obviously. He's a great one.
This isn't Madden, bro. Okay, this is real football.
Pierce is captaining the Lions.
Okay. All right. Enough shenanigans here. Yeah, it's going to be an ugly game. And I agree. Like, we got to stick on the ground here. I think Damian Harris is where I would go as well. Yeah, Brandon Bolden being questionable is something. I mean, I think he'll probably, it's probably not a big deal. He's probably a veteran just getting rest. But if his snaps are even limited a little bit, and I think the other thing, the way you've got to look at this game is, is this a spot where Bill Belichick is necessarily just going to start giving Stevenson more carries or maybe a few less because it's such a big game? Harris is still like their number one back there, even though I know it's like a very even timeshare. I think if Harris gets off to a good start in this game, he's got the best chance of coming up with like the 100-yard and a touchdown game. And again, we have seen this Bills defensive line get bullied by good rushers. So I'll go with Damien Harris, but Julian nailed it. This is a game where a guy could get 15 points and be like the high scorer. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, leads the Pats ground game in touches and touchdowns there. Pierce, what do you want to do for captain here? Why is it Gunnar Olszewski?
It's not. Jeff and Julian nailed it with two defenses playing pretty well and with the weather conditions. But the problem is their angle's wrong because you're not going to get production. You're not going to get consistent production out of anyone, so you need to chase the big play. And I know the weather conditions are against me, but I'll chase Emmanuel Sanders. We know Belichick shuts down the number one threat, which will be Diggs. And you can see it in the data. Number 3 against wide receiver number 1s is New England. But when they face wide receiver number 2, they rank 15th in DVOA. Sanders is going to have that opportunity. Really just chasing the big play here. Diggs is going to have to deal with tons of different coverage and looks. And so if I can just get the big play from him, and he leads the league. When you look at receivers with over 25 receptions, he has a 16.1 ADOT. That's his role on this team. I know he's been hit or miss this season, but this is the perfect spot to take that hit or miss guy when you're not going to get consistent production out of anyone in this game.
So then, Jeff, talking value here, who are you going to be looking to?
I'm going to look to Jonnu Smith. I mean, this is just the kind of game where, again, short passing. I think the Patriots will be using their tight ends quite a bit. And everybody's all high on Hunter Henry. He's gotten the touchdowns so far. But, I mean, like a little bit of positive regression from Jonnu Smith towards the end of the year would not be shocking at all. And this is a player who was very productive in the red zone for the Titans. And again, I mean, we're looking at this game like nobody should be heavily owned. If nobody's using Jonnu Smith, people are going to gravitate towards Henry, who's twice the price. I think it's absolutely fine. You're not going to see a ton of pass attempts. Maybe he only catches 3 passes, but if that touchdown goes to Smith this week instead of Hunter Henry, you're going to be in fantastic shape. I think all things considered, I'd rather take a shot with him than Aguilar just because of the weather conditions as well.
Okay. Pierce, how about you, dude?
Devin Singletary without Zach Moss. We saw Singletary's snap count go from 38% to 68%. New England's allowed the 9th most points to fantasy running backs. They have the 5th most fantasy points to receiving running backs. They're 5th worst in DVOA to receiving running backs. There's an opportunity here. Singletary last week, 15 route to Matt Breida's just 6. Now, I know Breida got the touchdown, but it's clear that Singletary is going to be the guy that gets a little bit more of the workload. He's going to be the guy that catches the passes out of the backfield. New England allows those points. I'll go with Singletary as my value play.
Okay, Jules, hook me up with a value play.
Yeah, I mean, Singletary, after getting those 15 rushing attempts and a reception, 16 touches, and being cheaper than Matt Breida doesn't make much sense to me. And we also just saw the Patriots give up multiple 100-yard rushers, even though that was a blowout win over Tennessee. And we're talking about the weather. So I'm captaining Damien Harris. On the other side, I'm just going to stay consistent, I guess, and say you go with the Buffalo running back because it's a running back game. So I kind of agree there with Pierce on Singletary. I will say you could get a little different and go for one or both defenses. Like the Patriots defense has scored whatever it is, 12 plus DraftKings points in 5 straight. They're playing very well. Buffalo's been very turnover prone the last few games. I think Pat's defense for 4,000 also makes some sense to just kind of that running back defense stack with Harris.
All right, Jules, you mentioned the total and how it's just been shrinking and getting smaller. So are you leaning towards the over now? It's 41 points.
No. So it was 43 and a half, and it's down to 2.5 points for obvious reasons, both the matchup and equally as much or more the weather, I would say. I don't know if I'm comfortable necessarily I think it goes under 41, but I don't know if I'm necessarily comfortable betting that. The numbers on the board right now that you're looking at scream, and this is rare for me, but scream a same game teaser. Pats plus 8.5, under 47. That all works together. Low scoring game. I don't think anybody's winning this game by more than a possession. So you get those 8 points with the Pats, 6 extra points on the total to feel much more comfortable. That's the way I would play this one.
Jeff, we're talking top 2 defenses in the NFL and DVOA, and then you kind of combine that with bad weather. Is this a recipe for the under?
It is, and I kind of like the under here. I know it's small, and usually when they get this small, you hear us sometimes say, oh, we got to take the over because it's so small for an NFL game. But this is just a recipe for a close, hard-fought game that is probably going to be like 2017. Also, I mean, I'll bring up the splits here from the DK Sportsbook. This is an early week, but, I mean, you've got a large percentage of the bets going on the over, but a bigger percentage of the handle going on the under. Usually tells you where the so-called smart money is going. I'll just follow that here. I like the under in this one. It's just a classic, AFC kind of East battle. I really do think this one just does not see many points.
Okay, Pierce, little key trend here. Under 7-2 in the Pats' last 9 road games.
Yeah, they're playing really good defense. I'm not surprised to see that happen. And this is a defensive showdown, regardless of the weather. It looks like there wasn't going to be very many points to begin with. Now, with the weather, there shouldn't be very many points. Look at what the Patriots have been doing recently. 5 of their last 6 games, they haven't allowed 13 or more points. And even the game where they did allow 24 to the Chargers, 7 of those came on the last drive of the game. The Patriots were up by 10. They were playing prevent. This defense is locked in. Buffalo's defense has been locked in all season. The only way that I see this going over is Buffalo does their one thing, which is to allow the run. And we saw that blow up against Tennessee. We saw that blow up against Indianapolis and to a lesser extent to Jacksonville. But if they can't stop the run, then this will go over. But I think that they're going to play decent, and we're going to see a grinded out, low-scoring game.
All right, Pierce, let's go to favorite player prop here. By the way, Gunnar Olszewski, first touchdown score tonight, plus 10,000 odds on that. Anytime touchdown score, plus 2,000. What do you want, Pierce?
If you're going to chase a wild card, I think Jeff's going to be the guy you listen to after he nailed the pick last week with little Jordan Humphreys. But I would be a lot more safe, and I think this play is obvious. Damien Harris over 48.5 yards rushing. Now, Belichick could absolutely pull Belichick and give a lot of work to Stevenson. But in a close game, I would imagine you want to go with your best running back. And I just don't trust this Buffalo rush defense whatsoever. I know that they have a high-ranked DVOA, but you look at their schedule. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL. That also means a lot of the games that they've played in negative game scripts where other teams just weren't able to run because they had to pass because they were down so many points. In the games that were close, they gave up a lot of yards to Jonathan Taylor. They gave up a lot of yards to Derrick Henry. They even gave up 67 rushing yards to Carlos Hyde in the game that they lost. So if this thing remains close, I really think Damien Harris easily blows away this 48.5 total.
All right, Ulrich, which player prop stands out to you for tonight?
Yeah, no, I definitely like the Damien Harris call. I'll give you a couple here. I actually like going under on Josh Allen's complete prop here. Under 275.5 rushing and passing yards. Patriots haven't allowed, the only quarterback they've allowed over 30 rushing yards to is Taysom Hill, and that was he was basically playing running back in week 6. So obviously very good at limiting yards. We know it's going to be a windy game and stuff. But for a touchdown prop tonight, I'm not going to go quite as big as whatever it was, plus 1,500 for Lil Jordan last week. But Jonnu Smith, as I mentioned, he's playing over 50% of the snaps. He's seen 11 red zone targets this year. He's only got 1 touchdown. Positive regression coming, plus 450 for an anytime touchdown for Jonnu Smith. I really like that one here.
Okay, Jules.
Hi, I moved. The sun is shining in my face.
Yeah, no, you look good.
Props. Josh Allen has thrown 7 interceptions in the last 3 games. The Patriots have 19 interceptions this season. It's going to be windy. Buffalo still likes to throw no matter what. Why is Josh Allen only minus 125 to throw an interception? I like Pierce's play a lot on Damien Harris rushing yards. But I really love this Josh Allen prop to throw an interception. The only thing that kind of keeps you away from it is if Buffalo really does wind up running the ball a lot more than they usually do because of the weather conditions.
All right, let's go slate approved pick. Favorite bet for tonight, Julian.
Pats are winning this game. Patriots money line.
Jeff.
I'll take the under. It's already moved to 40 from 42 to 41, but even at 41, like I'll stick with the under.
All right, Dietrich, bring us home.
I'm also with Julian. Patriots money line. If it's a defensive showdown and there's bad weather, you got to give a huge advantage to the better coaching staff. Also, the team with the better rush attack is going to win the game, and that's clearly the Patriots versus Devin Singletary. So Patriots money line.
Gentlemen, good stuff. We aren't quite done, though, with tonight's game. Each week, Gary Vaynerchuk and the Sweat's own Jesse Cofield, yes, TV's Jesse Cofield, they talk some football diehards on Gary V's Die Hard Dialogue. They talked to a lot of good dudes. They had Patriots supporter Ben Volen and Bills expert Chris Trapasso on this week to talk about the matchup.
I think I like the Bills to win this game, and I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring than the over-under of 43.5 right now, because kind of the low-hanging fruit is this is the number 1 scoring defense and the number 2 scoring defense matching up. But it's also the number 2 scoring offense in the Bills and the number 7 scoring offense for the Patriots. Like, these teams can score points. They like to do it in different ways. I think Mac Jones is going to be able to matriculate the ball down the field. We will see a few big plays from Josh Allen, but again, last week he showed that he can be methodical too. I think we get a little bit of a higher scoring game with the Bills getting healthier, Kyle Duggar potentially being out. I think the Bills squeak this one out at home.
I do think we'll see some points on on Monday night. I'm going to take the Patriots. The Bills have never played without Tre'Davious White before. I think that's going to be a big loss for them. And you look at the turnovers. Josh Allen and the Bills have turned the ball over 11 times in their last 4 games. The Patriots are number 2 in the NFL with 25 takeaways. They've been incredibly opportunistic. It's a tough ask, I think, for Josh Allen to have a clean, perfect game against, especially the way that this Patriots defense is rolling right now. So I'm going to take the Patriots 31-27. I think Mac Jones, this isn't going to be a tough environment for him, but I like the way that the Patriots are playing on both sides right now, and I think they're going to keep their winning streak rolling.
So, Gary, we have a bet on the DK Sportsbook. I don't know what your score prediction is going to be, but New England and Buffalo both to score 20-plus points. If you want to say yes, it's plus 150 on the DK Sportsbook. Yeah,
I love that.
So if you think it's high scoring,
let's post that. And then for my score, I'm going to go 29-21 Bills, just because I hate the Patriots. It's in Buffalo. I feel like, unfortunately, I've not consumed this winning streak enough to really, I watched the Jets-Bills game. I've caught the Bills a lot more. And I'm really, to be frank, and Jess, this, I've been on this kick a little bit that the Bills are not as good as people think. And I think that Colts game, my brother came over, we're about to watch the Jets, and I'm like, the Colts are going to beat the crap out of the Bills today. And it was like a kind of funny take, right? The Bills beat us by 1,000 the week before. But I didn't even like the way they beat the Jets, even though it was a monumental, easy win for them. It's just like something just felt a hair, like continues to feel a hair off. I think Chris's point on the Saints defense wasn't missing all that many people. It is a good defense. It was New Orleans. And look, Josh, me and AJ's big take on my brother AJ, who I talk football 24/7 with 365, our big take on Josh is he just might be talented, so talented that it can cover up a lot of things we see. I still think he's turnover prone. I think he can be dopey at times. Like there's things like that. I just don't want to pick the Patriots. And honestly, I'm going to say it in a different way to make Patriot fans a little happier. If the Pats win this game, I'm in straight nervous land.
All right, you just heard Gary and Jesse right there. The crew likes both teams to score 20-plus points tonight. And each week they pick a bet for an odds boost. So head over to the DK Sportsbook right now and opt in to that boost if you agree with Gary. Final segment of the show, Julian has been the foundation of this one today, the rock in which we are leaning on. So let's wrap it up with NBA building blocks. Which DFS plays and sportsbook bets are you building around tonight, Jules? Which guard are you building your lineup around?
Yeah, the guard position is all about value, but that's something we'll touch on in a little bit. I don't mind paying up for Cole Anthony at $8,000. He's at Golden State. Orlando is a massive underdog, but they have been a team that has kind of shown up in spots like this. They beat the Jazz earlier in the year. So I think Cole Anthony will be up for this game. You see he's averaging over 40 DK points per game. He's averaging over 42 DraftKings points on the road, so he's been a little better there. Not afraid to get shots up, over 20 field goal attempts in back-to-back games. So I think Cole Anthony, just on volume, is a pretty solid play on this slate.
All right, take me to forward then, dude. Who would you build your lineups around?
Yeah, so the Charlotte Hornets situation with all the players out with COVID protocols, is the story of pretty much every slate until they're back. Most notably, no Ball, no Rozier, and some other role players. So the first game in that situation, Miles Bridges went 40 minutes against the Hawks last night and scored 53 DraftKings points, 32 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, a block. Shot 11 of 15 from the field. Maybe he doesn't shoot quite as well. And he's going up against a Philly defense that's maybe a little bit more capable than Atlanta. But nonetheless, he was 8,400 yesterday. Now he's 7,700, down $700 after dropping 53 DraftKings points. Bridges is the guy for this Charlotte Hornets team right now. So I think he's significantly underpriced.
All right, dude. We have 10 games to choose from tonight. I say take us to center. And if you're going to build around someone, build your lineups around a man who plays the position of center in the NBA. Who would it be?
It's a very well-worded question,
Emerson.
Thank you. I would be building around Joel Embiid for $11,000. Pricey, but he has over 55 DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5, including 70 against Minnesota in an overtime game. And we're sticking in the same game here as Bridges. So you get a little bit of a game stack, and you get Embiid going up against a short-handed Charlotte team. So just lack of bodies. I think Philly should have a pretty easy time in this one, specifically Embiid in the paint.
Not to mention Charlotte ranking 3rd to last in defensive efficiency. That also helps. Value play.
Yeah, Hornets backcourt. No Rozier, no Ball. That opens up literally everything. So Ish Smith had 37 DraftKings points yesterday against the Hawks. He was 4,800 in that game. He is 3,400 in this game. That makes no sense, but he can go 10x pretty easily in this game. Cody Martin is 3,900. He had 37 DraftKings points in that game against Atlanta and is also down $1,000. Any and all Hornets guards just get huge boosts without Ball and Rozier in the lineup. So yeah, those two guys specifically would be my values that you can pay under 4K for each of them and get 70 DraftKings points from that combo.
All right, before you take off, got a couple questions regarding the DK Sportsbook. Which game total bet do you like best to build a bankroll with?
Yeah, I've bet fewer than 3 totals so far in the NBA this season, so I'm probably not betting any totals in general, but I'll just go to the lowest one on the board and take the under in the Thunder Pistons game. Detroit's down a couple of bodies, not the most talented team in the league. We saw the Thunder lose by 73 points last week. They are not very good, and they are without SGA, who is the guy that makes that offense go. So give me a rock fight in Detroit tonight.
All right, dude, last one here. Which team do you like to cover?
Let's moneyline parlay it here and play it a little safe. Hornets, down 1 million guys playing on the second night of a back-to-back. They somehow did beat the Hawks last night. I don't think they're going to beat the Sixers tonight. So we're going to pair the 76ers with the Phoenix Suns, who are going up against the San Antonio Spurs. Bounce back spot for the Suns. I know no Booker, but you parlay those together, gets you down to minus 128. I think those two teams are very, very safe to win on Monday night.
Jules, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Enjoy the sunshine. It looks good glowing on your glowable face. But we will be back for the sweat tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Is the Unreasonable Odds podcast, the new one, going to drop tomorrow, you and Steve?
Unreasonable Odds on Tuesday and Thursday, as is the case every week.
Would you like to tease what you guys are going to be talking about tomorrow real quick?
Sports.
That sounds great to me, buddy. Everybody stay tuned for the Madden Sim, starting with the Falcons at the Steelers at noon, and then you could check out the slate at 5 o'clock Eastern time for more on Monday Night Football with up-and-coming analyst Brendan Glasheen. There's Jeff Ulrich, and then, hey, maybe he'll show you his document one day on, his record here with all of these bets he's throwing out. And then Matt Miles.
Flash is one of the best analysts out there.
Amen, dude. All right, guys. We'll